And the discussion over life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness continues across platforms everywhere, including us and online on our app. We hope you'll download the app and follow us wherever you may be.
Holly Cousens, Yakima City Council member. Holly Cousens on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Holly.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Right on, Holly. Holly, we just had a conversation with Don Wayman out in Selah, and I guess first of all, how do you? I guess your reaction to what happened over the weekend. First of all,
with the protest, it's been interesting. I posted my encounter with him, and numerous people have reached out to me, and people are really upset with their own experiences regarding Mr. Wayman. So I think they have the right to they have a right to assemble and a right to protest. So it's interesting how it all unfolded.
How did this start? Tell us the story. How it started.
Yeah, thanks for that opportunity. My stepdad and I had gone hiking for the day, and I was pretty tired. My stepdad called and said, "Hey, would you like to go to the Black Lives Matter protest in Selah?" And I said, "Yeah, but I'm not really interested in walking, as I just got done hiking and I was pretty exhausted." And he said, "Well, let's just go and check it out, take some pictures." And I said, "Okay." So we went. We met up at the middle school. We did the whole pre-protest with everybody, and then when they marched, we drove our car with them and ended up parking across the street from the Civic Center. And they had the car show, or they were dragging the street there, so everyone was out watching the cars as well as the protesters at the Civic Center. And I saw Mr. Wayman. I didn't know him. I saw him. He was next to us, and he was in a City of Selah vehicle. And my stepdad pointed out that he was in a City of Selah vehicle. And I said, "Oh, well, maybe that's why he looks familiar to me. Maybe I've met him at an AWC, which is Association of Washington Cities conference." And I said, "Ask him if he works for the City of Selah," which sounds funny, but it opened the conversation. And so my stepdad had his window down, and he said, "Hey, do you work for the City of Selah?" And he said yes, told us who he was and a little bit about his background, being a colonel. And I think Mr. Wayman, and this is an assumption on my part, but I think he assumed that we were there watching the cars and not there part of the protest. And, he said that, I'm sorry, and I had told him, "Well, I'm Holly Cousens, and I'm the assistant mayor in Yakima." Because no matter where I go or what I do, I always hold that title. I'm always a council member, an assistant mayor. People, that's how they know me. And so I figured if he looks familiar to me, I may look familiar to him. So I tried to put that in perspective for him. Not that I was acting in a city capacity. I was just letting him know that that's who I was. And he said that we don't have the problems that Yakima has because we all conceal. And he patted his chest.
Now, is he still sitting in the car when he did that?
No, he was standing outside of the car when he did that.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, and that's okay. I didn't take offense to it. That's just what I witnessed. And he's talking to my stepdad and I, and then he points at the protesters and he says, "Look at them indoctrinating communism in my town." And my stepdad kind of took a moment, and then he says, "Well, then I guess we're communists." Because we were there with the protests, right? And I don't think he realized that. And Don turned around and walked away. And I did have some protesters that are friends of mine that had walked over towards us and had witnessed this encounter as well. I don't know if they were close enough to hear what happened, but they did. They were definitely close enough to see the encounter. One of them actually did a Facebook Live about the situation because I know she was close enough. I don't know if they all were, but I know that she was, and she Facebook Lived about it, and then I got a lot of pressure to post about it on Facebook. And again, Don Wayman was just exercising his First Amendment right and saying what he said to me. And I exercised my First Amendment right in putting it on Facebook. And I just put what happened. Hey, I was at the protest in Selah, and this happened. And everybody's seen that. It's been all over everything, and paper wrote about it. And it really turned into something a lot bigger.
So, Holly, what were you supporting? What is it that you were supporting? Were you supporting anyone's right to gather and to march? Were you supporting the specifics of the complainants? Were you supporting the underlying principles of Black Lives Matter? What were you in support of?
Yeah, so let me give you a little history here about me. I grew up in a family where social justice is has always been at the forefront of us. My parents both marched with Dr. King. I've encountered racism all through my whole life, as I'm an Ashkenazi Jew, who's had crosses burned on their lawn. And so my aunt passed away 2 years ago, and she also fought for the same thing. I was born in Pensacola, Florida. That's where she's from. And it's near and dear to my heart because that's how I grew up.
Just hold on a second. And I don't mean to be disrespectful, but we only have 10 minutes to go at this point, and there's some things that we need to make clear. So you have a personal connection with justice, right?
With social justice,
right.
Yes.
Okay, and so
specifically with Black Lives Matter, and that's where I was getting at. And I'm not in favor of looting and vandalizing stuff, but I am in favor of being able to assemble, and that's what we were there.
What do you feel about the disruption of the nuclear family structure? The idea of husbands, wives, and families. Where do you stand on that? Are you against the nuclear family as we know it in America and around the world today? Because
I'm not.
All right, but that's Black Lives Matter are.
Well,
Directly from. Hold on a second. This needs to be on the record so you know what it is that you're protesting. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure, requiring by supporting each other as extended villages, the collective care for one another. They don't believe, in fact, disrupt the American family. So when people are forced to say Black Lives Matter, they're forced to support that, okay? That's part of the picture. We foster a queer-affirming network. Now, in America, we have gay rights, but Black Lives Matter, that's one of their central tenets, and if you support that, that's fine. Not everybody does. And so when I say I support Black Lives Matter, I'm saying I support the group that fosters that. Can you pick and choose lines from their manifesto to support and lines that they don't? Do they say this is it. We embody justice, liberation, freedom and justice for all people, continued commitment to liberating people and ideas, except if they don't match with Black Lives Matter, then there's hell to pay. So just tell me that that's what you support, because that's what you're doing when you support Black Lives Matter as it's presented in America today. Go ahead.
Everybody's entitled to their opinion.
That's not opinion. That is right from their
you're not
their
gonna
page.
Let me finish.
No, I'm going to, but I'm not going to let you obfuscate or whatever the hell the word is here. This is what they're saying. I'm not saying
that you're wrong. You didn't let me finish my sentence. I never said you were wrong. What I said to you is everybody has a right to their opinion. That's what I said, and I was going to continue my sentence.
Oh, please
What
do.
I'm telling you is I was protesting because all lives matter, yes, but sadly not all lives in America hold the same value, and until they do, we have a right to assemble. Now, Black Lives Matter sure has a bad reputation for things that have happened. That doesn't mean that that's what I was supporting. I was across the street. I was supporting that all lives matter, and I will continue to support until all lives hold equal value in America.
So will you go to the Black Lives Matter people and tell them all lives matter and watch what happens? Will you do that? If you believe in all lives matter, which God bless you for it, will you make that statement to the Black Lives Matter folks and then take what comes your way?
I'd be happy to. You asked my opinion. That's why I was and you asked my statements. That's why I was there. I was there for that reason. Now, hundreds of people have come out with encounters about Dawn. You asked me to come on to talk about what happened in Selah. Hundreds of people have come out. Numerous people have come out against their city administrator. Now, I believe in Yakima, and Yakima County is part of Yakima. I believe in that, and I think that we can do better. I'm not saying better than Don. I'm saying we can do better, and people have the right to know who their representation is.
Absolutely.
Now, and that's what's happened with Mr. Wayman is people are coming out, and they are, they're speaking about their encounters with him, and they're upset. Well, they have a right to do that. I was not at the protest this weekend because I It's not now. It's up to the taxpayers of Selah to get their message out. It's not
Absolutely, but we're talking about you and your participation, how this goes. We understand that you and Mr. Wayman had your interaction, and that's that. But you said to him, then I guess we're communists. Do you want the voters of the 7th District in Yakima to know that you're a communist because that's the comment you made? Or is that a flip?
I didn't make the comment. My stepdad made that comment. My stepdad made that comment to him.
Do you support his comment? Do you support his
him,
comment?
My stepdad made the comment letting Mr. Wayman know that we were there standing with the group he called communist. He didn't make it in the fact that he's a communist or I'm a communist. His comment was sarcastic in stating that we were there with a protest, in which Mr. Wayman had just called communist. I am not a communist, and either is
well,
my stepdad.
let me ask this. Do you know anything about the communist origins of Black Lives Matter? Do you know that the gal who gets credited for the name claims to be Marxist-trained, that's another name for communist, right? So are you comfortable with supporting the group when, in fact, Marxism is, and the Weather Underground, domestic terrorism, is at the core of the roots of the people who started Black Lives Matter? Are you aware of that, or do you have an issue with that?
I am aware of it, and here's the deal. I feel like everybody has a right to their own opinion. That is not my opinion. I never stated it was my opinion. And the reality is the world has become so divisive. The gap is getting even bigger. We need to get back to loving and caring about each other. The issue I had in Selah was with the comment that Mr. Wayman said to me. And then that spun into the taxpayers of Selah trying to hold him accountable for his comments and encounters they've had with him, which is what you asked me to come on here and speak about, which is what I'm talking to you about. When I was raised when there was an injustice, we spoke about it, which is why I put on Facebook my comments regarding.
None of that's in question. And I don't know what you were told when you were invited to be on the program, or if it was Lance or Jax or how you got invited. The point is, as a elected Yakima City Council person, when you say Black Lives Matter and you support the organization known as Black Lives Matter, that means something, and something based on what they say. It's too vanilla and it's too mud to say, well, everybody can have their own opinion. This is a Marxist organization, self-proclaimed, with specific goals in mind. To defund police, how do you feel about that? To break up the American family, how do you feel about that? They have specific things in mind, and that's why America will not say why America comes back with what you said. All lives matter, because all lives do. This group has an agenda, they have an identity, they have a manifesto, and if somebody says they support that, they are supporting those things as well, Holly.
But what I was there supporting is that Black lives do matter to me, as do all lives matter. But sadly in America, Black lives do not hold the same value as other lives. And until that changes, I will continue to fight for the rights of everybody, including Black people. And it needs to be stated that way because it is important that we start valuing each other the same. People don't get pulled over not everybody gets pulled over for driving black unless you're Black. I mean, there's all sorts of issues. We've all heard them happening around America. They need change. As far as defunding the police, I'm not in favor of defunding the police, but we do need to change things. And we can't do it on a city level. It's going to take a heck of a lot more. We have to deal with homelessness. We have to deal with addiction. We have to deal with mental health in this situation, in this country. Sadly, we put our police officers in situations where they're dealing with all of this. And I can't imagine being a police officer, so I'm not one. I couldn't do it. I couldn't stand my life in a heightened sense like that.
You're again saying what everybody already knows and agrees with. So the question then becomes one of why support groups that want to do away with what you're saying. It's just their opinion, and everybody's allowed their opinion. You know, if you're going to be a leader, then you need to know what it is that you're leading. And by just saying everybody's entitled to their opinion doesn't quite get it done, because that doesn't make the changes that are necessary, and it doesn't address the forceful way that they're trying to make those changes. There's just more leadership to be done, Holly.
I agree with you, which is what I just said. There is more leadership to be done, but it's not something that I can tap into when it has to do with addiction and mental health. I can start things on a local level. If you want me to, you're trying to trap me into saying something, at least it feels like, about Black Lives Matter. I told you why I was there. I told you why I supported them.